guys about what it means to be leading the community from the forefront. So let's bring the leaders in on the stage. So it's my privilege to call upon stage the beautiful lady in sari today, Brenda, our wonderful Gloria, and fantastic Shreya on stage. Guys, over to you guys.
You can't do that.
Give them a
Fight us
big
down
round
or
of
we
applause.
combat. Me
Welcome them
jam in
in.
your face, we about that. Me plus we see the future, gonna get that. Get that. 10 toes in, can you feel that? Feel that? Feel that? Any time of the day, better make way when we pull up. On a new wave when to come up. We got the high-end product, keep the conduct. Business, professional. Body, phenomenal. Built in a way unstoppable. Our MO, incomparable. The style, the skill, impeccable. You know that's what we do.
Test. Thank you, Fincy. Um, this track is seeing a lot of me. I apologize. It was not intentional. But Brenda, Gloria, thank you firstly to our entire cabinet. That's actually, if you collectively put together the number of miles they've flown, that number can be mind boggling. But to have your presence and your energies here is so encouraging for us. This is the executive track. This has been sponsored by our platinum sponsor, Google. Googlers in the house? I knew that was going to happen. So, we've spoken so much about it, and I'm going to bring the lens into our CEO shop and the reason for it. So, Brenda, I'll start with you, and then Gloria, I'll come to you. Why the CEO shop?
That is a
Just test it, it should work. Yeah,
hello. Okay, it works.
yeah.
So, hello everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to be back here in India, getting to spend time with all of you. And Shrey has asked about the CEO shop, and I have to share an experience that I had that made us know that this was something really important to do. So, my board chair, who I love, who I will never allow to leave ever, her name is Angela. She was invited by a colleague of hers to join a cohort of CEOs who were taking this 2 day sort of boot camp training. And she sent me a picture of the people in the cohort, and it was Angela and 8 men. And she said, it was really good. She's multi-degreed. I think she has an MBA. She's run startups. She's been an executive in corporate, but she realized she had never been trained to be a CEO. And many of us who go into leadership, and I see the nods, right? You go there via whatever your path is. If you were in sales, then that's how you learned your sales and you did your sales thing really well and they promoted you. Or if you were in finance or if you were in marketing. So that's what you know. And many times what happens when we get into the senior level positions, we still lean on that thing that brought us there. And that's fine. But where's that training to be the CEO? And so there was this organization that put together this training that said, here are some things that you need to think about to be a CEO. And she loved it. But as Angela is, and as she's part of our board, she was like, we need to fix this. There need to be more women there. And some of the examples that they used were very male specific, and we need to help them fix that. So she took it on as a challenge, and she put together a cohort of some of her colleagues, and she allowed me to join as well. So there were 11 of us, and I think there ended up being 3 men, but the rest were women. And so when the gentleman would say, well, when the CEO, he, Angela would correct him, or she, or they. And it went on like that. But what it did for me was life changing. So just like, any of you who are senior level, I came up through what I knew. I'm a computer scientist, so I came up through all of the roles that you get as a computer scientist and became a leader. And as a woman, many times I was challenged in some of the decisions I made. Most of the time, I was challenged in some of the decisions or the way that I would present myself. What I got from that training was number one, fire hose training on really important ways to run an organization from staffing to just everything, soup to nuts. But even more importantly, what I got was vindication for the things that I had done right that I was hearing was wrong based upon what I look like. Right. And so it was helpful to be in this cohort of other leaders learning the things that I had done right and the things that I didn't yet know. And so we came back and said, we've got to be able to put this together and offer this for others. So that's how it started.
So that's the story of how it started. Now I'll come to how are we going to take it into the future, Gloria?
So, before I answer your question, I actually want all of you to give yourself a round of applause for investing in yourself and being here. Because if you want to be in those senior positions, one of the things you have to remember is you've got to be great to your team, you've got to do really good work, but if you're not good to yourself and investing in yourself, all those titles don't mean a whole lot because you're going to feel a little lost. So when we talk about what we're going to do at the CEO shop, beyond all the fantastic training that's going to be there, part of what is critical to being in a senior leadership position is community. You have to know you're not alone because any of you who have been in any position with any type of management, and especially when you get into senior leadership, it's very lonely. Everybody's looking at you going, what next? What are we doing? And you need to have a community around you, a cohort like you would receive at CEO shop, a group like this to give you that base to continue to move forward, to pick you up when you're not feeling real confident, to give you the skills that you can then look everybody in the eye and go, no, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, and permission to be vulnerable. Um, you know, there's a lot of judgment with the hats that you wear. There's judgment when you do something right, there's judgment when you do something wrong. And it's like you said, it's a lonely space. And you often don't have voices that encourage you. You often have voices constantly telling you what you're doing wrong because then you don't know what's right because there's something when you do something, there's no pleasing everybody. So it's been a tough road. And I want to ask you both the role that having a community plays, because that's what we do. I come to you folks and I share and I tell you this is my struggle. And when I recognize that there's resonance in that struggle that I am feeling and I know you've been through, I'm constantly able to feel like I'm held. And a lot of us don't have that. So, my question to both of you is what can we do to nurture that? The importance of the empathy, the chief empathy officer starts with empathy to ourselves, and we often don't have that. So, my question to both of you.
There's so much that I could say about that. I mean, it's part of the training that we have many times as women that you just go it alone. That other people are not going to understand it, and then they show you they don't understand you. And especially for the most senior levels, you have your role as the leader in the organization and you have relationships with everyone in the organization, but it's just the fact that everyone in the organization is not going to understand what it means to be in your shoes. And that's why having the cohort relationship that the CEO shop will build. So you'll have a group of people who you will go along with for a full 6 months, and you'll build those relationships, and you'll have each other to be able to share challenges with, and to be able to go back and bring the same to them. And so um, finding that community, just like we here at Anita B, at Grace Hopper India, we're a larger community. Finding those smaller communities are also valuable. And you can call up and say, hey, I have this challenge. What did you do in this situation? And it just makes all the difference in the world. It makes you a better leader. You continue to grow. And then you also have that release of that stress of feeling like that you have to do everything by yourself.
Yeah. And Gloria?
So, to add on to what Brenda was saying, it's amazing to have that cohort and that community when things are tough. It's just as amazing when you've got something to celebrate and nobody else understands why you're celebrating it. So, having that community around you, I'm going to ask everybody, how many of you, your family and friends, really understand what you do for a living? Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of hands
It's
raised.
like
A few.
6.
I can tell you, my family has, they don't understand what I do. They support me and they're wonderful. But having somebody that can support you, having a community around you, the cohorts and CEO shop, the communities that you're building by meeting each other right now, people that actually understand what it's like to be a person in this industry doing the work that we're doing and having that hand there when you need somebody to like give you advice, when you need somebody to celebrate that win that nobody else in your life is going to understand. So it's hugely important. We get very heads down in our work, especially in this industry. We've got to pick our heads up every once in a while and look around and go, who's around me? What community have I built? It has to be a very intentional act, especially if you're wanting to rise up into leadership or you're in leadership already. It's really easy. We do all the work and we're like this, doing all the work. Pick your heads up, look at who's next to you, because they're going to be the ones that are there for all the rough things, for all the good things. They're going to be the ones that are going to teach you something. They're going to be the ones that are going to keep you from taking a wrong path sometimes. So that sense of community is hugely important.
And I just want to add that it also is, as I said earlier, you get a vindication, especially as a female leader, that many times when people have judged you harshly for doing the very same thing that the guy next to you named Bob did, right? And there's no one to tell you that it was okay what you did. You have that in this community. And we also want to share that the CEO shop is not just for CEOs, but for near CEOs. So it's so important, as Gloria said, to invest in yourself. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you were already prepared, if you were already armed with a community, if you'd already had that training so that you feel even more confident that when that opportunity comes along, that you should step up and take it. And you've got things that are in your pocket that you already know to do. Leading with confidence comes from having that knowledge that, okay, I've already talked through these things, I've already been trained, I've already got a community, I've already got somebody to call. It just makes all the difference in the world.
And that's amazing because my next segue is into the coming together of IQ and EQ, right? In India, we have a tendency to focus a lot on IQ. So you'll see very sharp minds. So statistics and research shows that the minute you have somebody become a manager from being an individual contributor, there's suddenly a gap. And that's when they start to fail. And when they fail, India is very also culturally averse to failure, right? We don't take our fail, especially with marks and education. I'm referring more to that. We're removed from extra and co-curricular activities by the time we're in 10th. You know, we have to focus on education only. So there's a lot of these cultural nuances. But it's when you play a sport, it's when you're in art, it's when you're doing all of these other things when you learn EQ, and we don't have that much of a focus. So, for everybody here in the room who's looking to move up, the transition from not just being IQ, you need that, but the EQ that comes in. So, my question to both of you is what can they do to invest in that?
Well, there's so much. I mean, there's so many great books that you can read of others who have done what it is that you're trying to do. And I love the ones where people are very honest about their failures. Nobody likes to fail. There's absolutely no one in this room that wants to fail. But I can tell you what, the only things I've ever learned, I learned from when I failed. And so going after biographies or other books for people who will share with you their ups and their downs, where they built that company and they failed. When I first took this job, there was a book that I'm going to remember the name of that I read by a CEO. And one of the things that I remember, he went through, he took over a turnaround company and he had so many trials. And one of the things he said that I keep with me today, he said, "You know what? In the when the times are hard, I sleep like a baby, waking up crying every 2 hours at night. And so it was encouraging to me to hear people say that they that they were able to cry about the things that didn't go right, that they were able to say, I failed, and figure out how to pick themselves up, because from that is what you will learn. And so the EQ part comes from being a person. A leader, if you don't keep your personage, you're not going to be a good leader, and you won't be a leader for very long. And we want to be, as women, many times we're called upon and leaned upon for the mothering side of us, and that's a skill that gets used. But more importantly, you have to realize your own personage and allow yourself to lean to your strengths, know what your strengths are, so that people don't pull from you what you are not willing to give. That's what burnout is made of. And so really having those, that's why having those relationships that keep you balanced help you know when you're off the track. I've got colleagues who will say to me, Brenda, you're looking a little crazy right now, and Brenda's used to burning the oil and going through and doing the thing. If I didn't have people say that to me, and like you said, my family, they love me. They think they know my title. They don't really know what it takes to do what I do. And so when they say, Mom, you need to rest, or Sister, you need to rest, I mean, I love them and that means something. But when I have a colleague who's been through some of the very same things that I've been through, and they say to me, it's time for you to go sit down, or it's time for you to go take this seminar, or have you heard about this particular book to read, or webinar, go and take that and feed yourself. That's meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gloria.
One of the things, too, is in our society, in the industry in particular we work in, but this is really true across all industries, we get told a lot that we don't have EQ. And it's not true, because the reality is every single one of us has that. The problem is we've walled it off.
Yeah.
We've walled it off because we were learning and trying to do something and trying to be the persona that everyone was expecting us to be in the workplace. And if we just take even a half a step back from that wall, take two bricks out of it, you start to see things differently. You start to lead with heart, because leading with intelligence is absolutely necessary. But if you mix in a little bit of heart, if you just take a half a second and think about, am I treating other people in a way that I would find acceptable? Not how I want to be treated, but that I would find acceptable. That is giving you a huge leap forward in learning how to lead with good EQ, with good common sense. And Brenda's absolutely right. If you don't have people around you that are letting you know when those things are happening, you end up going like this. You go from one end to the other, one end to the other, back and forth, instead of that balance that you need in the middle that people can look at and say, that's the kind of leader I want to be.
And I want to say this, I really say it to everybody, but I want to say it especially to the women leaders. I know when I was coming up, there was a definition for me as to what I was supposed to be to lead, to be acceptable, to be accepted into leadership. And I don't know, I'm going to tell my age. We had to wear the little, suits with the puffy shoulders. They basically were making us little men, with the little ties and that sort of nonsense. And I really want to encourage us to set your own example for leadership. There isn't one example. I always tell this story, and because I think it speaks a lot to culture in general. There was a survey that I think GitHub did a few years back. They asked people to name three male tech leaders, and everybody named the usual suspects: Bill Gates, whoever, fill in the blank. Then they asked for people to name three female tech leaders. Can anybody guess who they named? Any guesses? So, first of all, only 10% of people thought that they could name three. And then only 4% came up with some names. And here's what they said: Sheryl Sandberg, Siri, and Alexa. Now, what does that tell you? There was this idea that there was one way to be a female leader in tech. Only one. There was only one slot in the array named female tech leaders. And so many of us have tried to follow whatever that example is that you were told that you needed to be a female leader. And what, first of all, the world needs is you. And the world also needs to see the full variety of what a female leader looks like.
Yeah.
That's going to make the world easier for all the women coming after you because they will be able to be who they are, to be in leadership, and they'll have much more success with less stress.
To that, to that. My last question, I know time's up. My last question, like a rapid fire to both of you. What's the best advice you've received as a leader from somebody?
Best advice I ever received, it's actually kind of twofold. One was to be myself, quit trying to be anybody else. And the other was to get out of my own way.
Woo, woo. My advice goes back to what you said about the IQ and the EQ. It's like, get out of your head, right?
On that note, to all of the future leaders sitting in this room, you couldn't have heard it better from the voices that are. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Gloria, for joining us here. We will keep you all posted about the CEO shop. I know a lot of you have a lot of questions. I think the first thing we'll do after GHCI is a GHCI AMA where we can answer everything. Okay? Thank you all. Thank you for being our audience today. Thank you,
Thank you.
Brenda. Thank you, Gloria. You're internal people, so the gifts are for everybody else, but we shall have our own later. Thank you.
Ain't never thought that I saying you can't do that. Tigers down, now we combat. New gen in your face, we about that. Me plus we see the future, gonna get that. Get that.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Thank you so much, Shreya. Thank you so much, Gloria.